Hello, this is Jessica here. So today we will be watching some of the making of my logo. The color was added with my iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. I usually prefer harder mediums like watercolor and pencil over digital, but then there are certain applications in which a digital approach is simply more logical. In this case, I will have to make many different sizes with a transparent background, some with a light background, some with a dark background, so it depends on what it's posted on, so it'll still pop out. And I'll need that to be a file that is easily uploaded to any of my online locations or watermarked onto a photo of mine. So because of its flexibility of application, I chose to digitally paint over a hand drawing for this project. In almost every piece that I do, I battle with myself over just how saturated I should go. I usually feel at first that I'm pushing the saturation a little bit too strongly, only later to discover exactly how much deeper it can go. I usually notice that by duplicating a layer or adding another wash of paint and then just really falling in love with that and kind of swaying off into that end of the spectrum a little bit too much sometimes. So when I look at the difference between my first stage and my last stage, I am usually fairly shocked at how saturated my final stage is in comparison to my beginning stages, when I remember my beginning stages were so lively to me and now they seem kind of dull. It's common for me to be first very pleased with my saturation and values and then develop some doubt along the way about it being too weak or appearing unfinished. And finally, I get a little bit overzealous, like I mentioned, in popping in the darks, because I love that stage. I love to pop in darks and push them. I love shadows. And then also popping the lights, the highlights. I get a little bit excited about that, and then all of a sudden, like, everything has the same amount of contrast. And I just lose the overall image. So I'm generally concerned about making things too bright or too dull in finality when it's viewed. So I'm learning how this struggle develops within me, and I imagine it will smooth itself out with enough practice and understanding of myself and my art and my style and what I want that to be and what feels right. And my goals, my learning goals, because I'm just never going to be done learning about art. I believe I begin so pleased with it because it's the first time that I'm seeing my piece in color, and watching my idea come to life is exhilarating. The longer I work on it, the more second guessing becomes a factor. There are so many directions a piece can go, and it can completely shift in the color stage. My second guessing is rooted in the immensity of choice that I have, and if I've made a good one. I begin to wonder if I'm living up to my vision or going off track too much. I believe this can be mitigated by having a clearer image of what my final product should be. Often I begin working on a piece before I have that clarity because I got a glimpse of something in my head and it excited me and I just sort of ran with it and didn't clarify the details of what I wanted the end result to be. You'll actually see evidence of this playing right before your eyes when my canvas is flickering like that. It's because I've zoomed out and I'm testing two layers between each other. I'm looking at some element of this drawing and testing it. Too dark, too light, more saturated, da 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 da. I'm flashing back and forth between those two choices, or sometimes 3 or 4 choices that I've made for myself because of lack of planning and curiosity getting the better of me. So that's what that flashing is going on. And I also apologize if that's aggravating to any of you. I'm still trying to learn how to record my process in an enjoyable way via digital art because my physical medium, I just have a camera set up that stays still and looks down at what I'm drawing. So with digital art, I zoom in and I zoom out and I test stuff so frequently that it might be a little bit confusing or irritating, so I apologize for that. In the process of also you know, bettering my own style and my habits and my abilities with art. I will become more confident in my lines. I don't think I'll have to test quite as much. Again, going hand in hand with the lessons I was just discussing about having a clearer end vision. You know, in watching this video, it is something also that I noticed in this piece later on. This outline that I'm doing right now, to me, while I was doing it, was very obviously blue. When I exported it with a transparent background, it looked just solid, like 50-50 gray. My back end canvas is a 50-50 gray, so that I can try and maintain a good idea of what my true values are. And when you see them so close together, like this coming up here, they almost look identical. Like the one that I'm drawing with is a tad darker than my canvas background, but they are so very close, and that shocked me when I saw my transparent JPEG export for the first time. It just looked gray. Just on a white background, it just looked absolutely gray. But to me, that was so very blue until later. I just wanted to point that out as an example of this process that I'm explaining to you, where at first I really like it and I think that it's saturated and colorful, and then later on I push it much more severely and then realize just how gray or dull my initial layers were. And so there's a prime example for you right there. If I have developed a clear vision instead of just sort of rolling with it along the creative process, I will more easily be able to gauge if I'm derailing or not. On the other hand, I don't want to be too strictly ruled by my original vision. There must be some room for intuition to take over, but I also theorize that a clear endpoint will allow for stronger intuitive adjustments to the piece. This is because my mind will not be so cluttered with those thoughts of like, what if I make the overall colors green and blue instead of violet and orange? How will that change this? Should I make the lighting stronger here? Should I have a light background? Should I have a dark background? And just fighting with values and saturation and color, and it gets a little bit packed. And all of that really should just be taken care of already, or at least mostly so. You have a clear direction. It's the foundation that you've poured for your piece, and you can then sort of go a little nanners with the decoration, if you will. So at this point, I can tell that the outline I had going is a bit darker and more blue in hue than I previously mentioned. So this is after I noticed how gray it appeared. And did something to mitigate that. I'm sure that it was a duplication of the layer just to make it more intense. I'm also playing with hair color, like a secondary hair color, which I wasn't planning on, but it did look a little flat to me. It needed to have some more interest in it, and I wanted to push some warmth into the bottom of the icon to balance the warmth in the top as well. But I wanted the top cards to really still be their own feature. So I didn't want it to be the same sort of burgundy warmth. I wanted it to be different. So I pushed it a little bit more into the oranges, also to offset the blue and make that blue more apparent, just subtly so. I'm not quite sure why my canvas is on its side. So bear with me. Hopefully it will flip around again here shortly. Yep, okay, so I'm looking at the clip and it should flip around here soon. Sorry about that. Again, digital recordings and lessons learned therein. So here I'm also going through the border and adding a secondary border to pop the icon away from the border, give it a more, I don't know, graphic appearance. Oh, looks like I'm changing my mind yet again. We're testing a new theory. Testing it with the dark background as well as with a light background, because like I said earlier, I needed two versions. If I'm posting this as a watermark on a relatively dark piece that I've done, then I'm going to be using the lighter background or lighter bordered version so that it will still stand out in the same way that if I post it on a light painting that I've done with a darker border, it will still pop out. So here it looks like I'm just adding some subtle secondary colors in the shadows. Right now I'm working with a blue, a very grayed out blue, because I don't want it to really pop or read very strongly as blue. I just want it to be a hint, just some interest, some variety. So that about wraps it up for this piece. These videos are made possible by my beloved patrons. An in-depth outline of my process from concept to final image is available exclusively on Patreon, which I will link below. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on my newest videos, and thank you so much for watching. Jessica out.